Okay, and we're back. So motor development, sequence and trends. Gross motor development, you're going to want to know the difference between gross motor development and fine motor development. Easy way to think is big muscles on your arms and legs, big muscles in your stomach, those are gross motor. So any kind of movement that for the most part uses your thighs, your upper arms, your abdomen would be a gross motor. So fine motor development would be things that require manipulation. So using your hands, your fingers, your toes, your feet to manipulate something would be fine motor development. So reaching or grasping. And reaching for the newborn through the 1-year-old is probably by far the most important motor skill that the child will have to contribute to their learning. Sequence of how these progress is fairly uniform. Now the ages may differ some, that's why we use a range instead of a definite month. But typically the sequence will start with gross motor development, crawling, standing, walking. Then it will progress to fine motor development. So you know, the young infant is going to first learn how to raise their arm, hold their arms up, you know, bring their arm over. That's gross motor. But then as they realize that at the end of that arm is a hand that they can grasp things with, that is fine motor. So they go from gross to fine. So mastery involves acquiring increasingly complex systems of action, just as I described with throwing their arm up in the air, then purposely putting their arm in the air, to moving that arm around, to realizing they can use their hand and then their fingers. That is that increasingly complex system of action. Keep going. So cultural variations in motor development. The rates and patterns are going to be impacted by early movement opportunities, what their environmental stimulation is, and child rearing practices. So many of you will notice on your discussion boards for this past week where I asked you to create your child and raise your child to 3 months. I asked several of you what kind of toys would you select for your child, and why would you make those selections based on a developmental age? Now, I asked that question knowing we were moving into chapter 4 because the rate and pattern of their development is going to be impacted by environmental stimulation, whether that's bright lights or things that they can reach for, kick at, study. All of that can provide some stimulation. Another thing is early movement opportunities. You've heard of the phrase tummy time. Tummy time is important for infants from the time they're newborns and on. You know, back to sleep, but when they're awake and they're doing activities, you want to have them on their bellies as much as you can because it builds core strength, and it also increases their chest strength and their arm strength to push up. So milestones of reaching and grasping. There's pre-reaching, which is just when they're throwing that arm up, but it doesn't have a lot of purpose. Ulnar grasp is where they're not using fingers, but they're kind of bending their thumb over. That's ulnar grasp. And then they'll go to transferring an object from hand to hand. Is the next thing they'll do, and from that then pincer grasp. Once they develop the pincer grasp, typically that occurs right around the time that they are ready to move on to Cheerios or cereal puffs as a snack for them as well. So then we talk about development in their senses. So developments in hearing. Baby's hearing develops rapidly. 4 to 7 months, they'll have a sense of musical phrasing. So if you chant to them or you kind of talk to them in a pattern, a musical pattern, they can pick that up. They have done studies where they've given different types of musical tunes to see which the baby turns to, showing that babies are able to distinguish musical tunes. At 6 to 8 months, they will start showing a preference for their native language, meaning they will tune out language they do not recognize. 6 to 12 months, they can have sound regularities in human speech. And in 7 to 9 months, they can start to divide speech into word-like units. In other words, they'll start recognizing words. Excuse me. Visual development. This is supported by rapid maturation of eyes and visual center in the brain. So at 2 months, they will begin to focus on items. Now remember, their vision is very poor at birth. That is why you want to hold your baby up about 12 inches from your face so that they can study the details of your face. So 2 months, they'll start to focus. 4 months, they will be able to pick up colors. So, hint, hint, an ideal toy for a 2-month-old would be something that is black and white or has a lot of contrast so that they can study it, because if it's just pastel colors, they can't really make out the difference yet until 4 months. So 6 months, acuity, scanning, and tracking, so they're able to focus on things farther away and follow them. And 6 to 7 months is when depth perception will emerge. And depth perception, there's a reason it occurs right around 6 to 7 months, because crawling is starting to occur at 6 to 7 months. So, you can read over that one. So let's talk about the visual cliff. In this, it shows a link between crawling and depth perception. That babies who are first starting to crawl will not have developed a depth perception yet. That's why you've got to have baby gates up. Be careful of setting babies on counters, especially if they're mobile, because they aren't able to visually perceive the distance between the floor to the countertop they're on, or the table, or the chair, or the top of the step to the next step. So they're not able to navigate those. Although a baby who's been crawling for 3 months will have a much better depth perception than a baby who's been crawling for a month. Okay, so patterns. 2 months, they're going to be sensitive to contrast. So simple patterns such as circles or checks would be good for 2 months. 2 to 3 months, you'll notice they explore pattern features and they'll look at each section. 3 to 4 months, they will look at organization and all of the patterns and what do they make as a whole item. And by 12 months, they detect familiar objects represented by incomplete drawings, such as this. Okay, I'll let you read face perception. Okay, that is it for now. You'll want to review what differentiation theory is so that you're familiar with it. It's part of why they do facial recognition. There's an interesting study that indicates that infants will stare and study attractive faces longer than unattractive faces. But yeah, I'll let you read that section on your own. Thank you and have a good week. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me. I will get back to you as soon as I'm able. Thank you and have a good day.